Hey everyone, welcome to my October TBR. In October I'm going to be taking part in a readathon. I'm going to be taking part in Spookoplathon. So this is a month-long read-along hosted by Becca from Becca and the Books, and it is basically her spookish version of Bookoplathon, which she usually runs in September. Because it's being run in October this year, it is now spooky themed. Will I be reading a lot of spooky books? Probably not. I just don't have many on my shelves, and I want to still prioritize the books on my shelves at this point in time. So I'm just going to be taking you through a random selection of books I would like to get on my TBR, but I'm going to be rolling as I go, so I will be selecting my prompts in the moment in which I'm picking up a new book rather than doing it at the beginning of the month. So there is a good chance that a lot of these I won't be able to fit in. I'm hoping that I can fit some of these in because that would just be ideal. But you know, if I read other books on my TBR, if I have to read occasionally a book not on my TBR, that's also fine. I do want to keep I do want to kind of stick to the sort of like bookish prompts that I get through the readathon. There are like 2 books that I might read that regardless of whether I find a prompt for them, I will be reading just because these are book club books, but we'll just have to see. So randomly going through my selection here, one of the spooky reads I do want to get on there, and I have like, I feel like this one will be possible just because it is a spooky book, and so I feel like I should be able to get it in more easily. It's A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. Only thing I know about this is that it's a haunted house book, so that's all I really know. I think it's also, no, is this one the one inspired by a Shakespeare play? I don't think so, right? So the only thing I know about it is it's got a haunted house setting. So yeah, this one would really fit the season. So since it's probably the only book on my shelves that is spooky, October needs to be the month in which I'm reading it, right? Another book that would be like perfect for the season is Upstream by Mary Oliver. This is a essay collection. It is nature writing. This cover screams autumn, so it feels like the perfect time to pick this one up. This was also a gift gifted to me by Hans. We did a Secret Santa over on the Discord of Jolien last year, and this is one of the 2 books he gifted me at that point in time. This is the oldest book on my TBR right now. I am kind of hoping that my first roll for Bookoplathon is going to be TBR vet, because then I can immediately put this one in there. But you know, will the fates be so kind to me? Probably not. Next up we have 2 books which are actually the same book. It's the same story. It's the original book written by the original author, and then it's an adaptation of it. So we are talking about No Longer Human by Osamu Dazai. This is a Japanese novel. I don't actually know too much about it. I think it deals with mental health, potentially with post-traumatic stress syndrome. It's very short, which is interesting because we will now look at the adaptation, which is not short. So this actually, for Bookoplathon, I had to make like chance cards with books I want to read, books I don't want to read, and I basically went about choosing the shortest and the longest books on my physical TBR for that. And this one is in for one of my shortest books, and the other one is in for one of my longest books, and that would be No Longer Human by Junji Ito. So this is the manga adaptation of the novel that I just talked about, which is over 600 pages. Now, of course, if you're going to make something into a comic book format, you're going to be stretching out the page length regardless, but from, what is this one, under 200 I feel like, or just over 200 to over 600, it's under 200 to over 600. It's a tripling of the page length. So, but regardless, I do feel like because this is a manga adaptation, I will be able to get through this one relatively quickly. I am hoping to read both of these at around the same time in order to be able to do a video about the comparison between the 2. This one we're going to put aside for a little bit later. And then a final sort of like video project I have for the month of October that would be ideal to get done, but for this one I need to kind of get 3 books into my Bookoplathon, which the luck really has to be on my side for that. It's like an Illumicrate vlog. So what I kind of want to be doing with my Illumicrate from this month onwards is when I receive an Illumicrate box, I want to unbox it and then immediately read it and give you both of these in a single video, an unboxing and a spoiler-free review. Now, I do have some Illumicrate books still left on my shelves, and I thought like it would be nice to just like do all three of these in one video, kind of catching up to my Illumicrate backlog. For that we have the first Illumicrate book that I received this year, which is Some Desperate Glory by Emily Tesh. This is a sci-fi story, don't really know anything else about it. Basically, this is just the one that got the ball rolling, you know. I just wanted the book of the month afterwards, I think, but so this is the first month that I was allowed to, that I was moved away from the waiting list, and so this is the book that I got for that. Then I did start skipping a little bit more as well throughout this year. No, not exactly too many times, but I did skip 2 times. And then we have the July book, I think this one is, the Jasad Air by Sarah Hashem. This is the one that I'm most excited about out of this Illumicrate selection because I believe it is Egyptian inspired. Once again, the rest of the premise has completely skipped my mind at this point in time. And because I'm getting close to potentially reading it, I'm also not going to look into it again. And then we have The Sun and the Void by Gabriela Romero Lacruz. And this is a book that I'm now hesitant about because I know somebody who has read it who was really disappointed by it, and apparently quite a few people are being disappointed by this book. And so I'm a little bit tentative when it comes to this book, but hopefully I'm gonna have a great experience with all 3 of these books. But yes, the month of October I would love to be able to get these in, but yeah, the odds are gonna have to decide on that. Now, a few things on this October TBR that are not physical, that aren't physically on my shelf. First up, we have King's Dark Tidings by Kel Kate. This is the second book in the King's Dark Tidings series, which is interesting because quite often when a book in a series has the title of the series, it's the first book, but in this case it's the second one that has the name of the series title. Yeah, that didn't fully make sense, but whatever. This is a series in which we're following Reskin. Reskin as a young boy was kind of taken from who knows where and given over to a castle that was going to train him to become the ultimate warrior. Now they trained him in everything like martial arts, you know, court life, diplomacy and all of those things. The one thing that they didn't really include in their program was humanity. There was no time to treat Reskin as a boy. There was no time for them to learn how to make human connections, to learn about friendships, love, to establish any type of emotional intelligence. So Reskin grows up to be a man who is skilled at many things and who lives by this code of rules that he has to follow in order to stay alive. However, one day, due to circumstances, he is out into the world on his own with no real guidelines to follow except for 2 rules that he doesn't really understand all that well. And yeah, it's about what ensues next. This is a little bit more of light-hearted fantasy to some extent because of that sort of like comedic relief that comes from his lack of emotional intelligence and the way that people around him in the real world misinterpret him and his actions. Yeah, this is a reread for me. I have read the first 4 books in the King's Dark Tidings series. I'm rereading them in order to get to book 5 and the prequel that came out last year. And then another one on this TBR that I don't physically own is Kushiel's Justice by Jacqueline Carey. This is the second book in the Imriel trilogy. This is the second trilogy, and because the character that we're following in this trilogy is someone we meet late in the Feder trilogy, I'm not really going to talk too much about the premise of this trilogy. But so the Feder trilogy is basically a trilogy in which we're looking at a girl called Feder who is touched by gods and who is trained to be a courtesan but also a spy, and who basically has to kind of sniff out some conspiracies going on within the court and try to subvert some plans. I really enjoyed the first trilogy. I enjoyed the first trilogy more than I enjoyed the first book in the Imriel trilogy. We are following a new perspective, and yeah, I just felt like with the Feder trilogy I always had this sort of like difficulty at the beginning of each book, then something would happen that would just like catapult me through like 2/3 of the book, and then like the final sort of like 10% or so of the book would be a struggle again. So, but with the Imriel book, the first Imriel book, I did not have that catapult moment, and so it kind of was a little bit more of a struggle in that sense for me, because I didn't have that huge catapult moment to overcome the lulls at the beginning and end. So I'm hoping that I'll have better luck with the second book in this trilogy. I do care about the character, it's just that, you know, nothing has happened that really got me super engaged or so the way it did with other books in this world. And then we have a little bit of hopefuls that I'm going to be mentioning. First up we have Secret Project 3 by Brandon Sanderson. Secret Project 4 just landed in my mailbox and I'm behind. I would have loved to fit this into September, but wasn't possible. I finished my final September book like yesterday evening. Yeah, I'm not going to say anything about this. I also still don't know anything about this because I am keeping myself in the dark about the Secret Projects book. So the only thing I know about this one is it's Cosmere, but that's all I know. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to reading it. I did read another Brandon Sanderson in September, so and I did have quite a good time with that. So maybe the Brandon Sanderson rut is over. And then another one that I would like to get on there is The Liar's Knot by M.A. Carrick. This was the August book, I feel like, or maybe even July book, no, the August book, I think, for a read-along that Sarah was hosting for this over on Of Queens, Witches and Valkyries. And this book just never reached me in the month of August. It reached me finally in September, but I didn't finish it, like I wasn't able to fit it into my September, because September was like a little bit of a chill reading month for me. I didn't really like, I still read quite a lot, but you know, I just definitely feel like I wasn't in a reading mood a lot of the time. So could I have read more in a month in which I was like constantly turning the pages? Yeah, sure. But September just was not that month for me. But so this is the second book in the Mask of Mirror series, and in this one we're following a girl called Ren, who basically when she was young was kind of taken into this sort of like thieving crew after the death of her mother, and there she basically had a traumatic experience. She and another friend of hers escaped, and then they kind of went elsewhere, but they've returned now to their hometown to try and run a scheme where they're infiltrating a royal house in order to steal their money. But what they don't know is that this family is actually also in financial difficulties themselves. Aside from this character, we also have a sort of Zorro-esque character whose identity we're going to try to unmask throughout the book. I really enjoyed this one. I like the fact that we were following multiple perspectives and we kind of see how each and every one has their own sort of agenda, and it's interesting to kind of see like how their agendas overlap or where they might be working against one another, and where you feel like a sort of connection to all of these characters, and so you want all of them to succeed. You're also seeing that that isn't possible, because if one succeeds in certain things then the other one will fail. And then the final book to mention here, which will be a must for this month, is The Bone Shard Emperor, second book in the Drowning Empire series by Andrea Stewart. This is the book club book for September for the Howling Pack, but the live show is on the 7th of July. No, not July. Why am I saying July? So far past July, of October. Now I won't be there for the live show, so in principle I don't have the same sort of like deadline. However, ideally I do follow that deadline just to hold myself accountable, I guess. But so this is a book that I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed the first book a ton. I've been waiting to dive into the second book. It's just another case of like not being able to do it. This was basically going to be the next book that I was going to pick up. But as I indicated earlier, I just finished like my last current read yesterday evening, like late in the evening even. So there was just no way to fit anything else into September anymore. But in this one we're looking at a sort of like island empire, and here there's something like sinister going on. Basically the emperor uses bone shard magic, meaning that every young child of like 13 I believe is required to donate a bone to the emperor, and then the bone can use those bones and then the emperor can use those bones in order to bring to life certain artifacts that he makes, which are basically basically imagine them as sort of like robots, but then they have like real flesh and stuff like that. They're really sort of like animal robots basically. And so the people whose bones have been used, they kind of also have like health implications because of this. So this is really quite a sinister, macabre type of magic. And we are following multiple characters. Basically, we're following a smuggler who is just trying to alleviate a debt he has with a really powerful society. He is basically a smuggler, so you could think he's part of the criminal class, but he has a heart of gold. And while he tries to deny it, he just cannot seem to help. He just cannot seem to stop himself from helping people when they are in need. The other character we're following is the daughter of the emperor, who basically is learning this bone shard magic, and her father has sort of like no regard for her, and she's kind of in competition with this adopted son of his. And basically, the more they learn, the more rooms within the palace that they are unlocking. And then there's a third character that we're following, but basically I didn't really care too much about that perspective, and I've actually also forgotten quite a lot about that perspective, to be fair. But so those are the requirements. But what I want to still do within this video is actually roll for Becca's Spookoplathon, do my first roll, give you guys a result. Depending on the first result, I will also do the second roll. But so I should be screen recording now. So I have a website open for the dice roll. I have the board open. If you remember my earlier comments, I'm hoping for TBR vets, so I need to roll a 4 to start with in order to get that. So let's see what this one gives. So go. An 8, of course. Couldn't have it easy. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. A green one. Of course, none of these books is green, obviously. But actually, we can do the exact same book, I feel like, because this is an autumnal cover, whereas I feel like the orangey section is much more prominent. All of that is trees, and trees are green. So I'm going with this. This is a green cover. This is a nature cover with trees. It's green, okay? So yeah, this is going to be my first read. And should I already do the second one just to be on this, just to see if I can fit in the Bone Shard Emperor in my second roll? We'll see. If it doesn't fit in, it does mean that it takes a while for me to get to the second one. And that will be a 6. So moving on from the green space, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Stabby. Now, Stabby is a prompt that I didn't really want, because it's kind of like, you know, murder mystery, crime, all that type of stuff. And I feel like if need be, what I'm gonna do with that is just read the next comic book in the Buffyverse, though I kinda think I'm gonna be DNFing that comic book series. But maybe I should take a look at this premise for A House with Good Bones, because this might fit, you know. So Samantha Montgomery pulls into the driveway of her family home to find a massive black vulture perched on the mailbox, staring at the house. Inside, everything has changed. Gone is the eclectic warmth Sam expects. Instead, the walls are sterile white. Now it's very important to say grace before dinner, and her mother won't hear a word against Sam's long dead and little missed grandmother, who was the first to put down roots in this small southern town. The longer Sam stays, the stranger things get, and every day more vultures circle overhead. This doesn't give me the indication that this is going to be stabby, so this is not going to be the book for that. So I need a little bit of time to think on this one. But yeah, I'm going to leave you on this cliffhanger basically. Either I'm reading Buffy, which I'm not entirely sure what the next comic book in that series actually is for me to read, but I'll put that on the screen, or I'm gonna go for something else. But I'm not a big fan of murder mystery in general, so it's very unlikely that it's gonna be something like that, but maybe something in the lines of a horror with a serial killer in it, for example. That might suit me better, but that would be a book that is not on my TBR, and not even a book, like I cannot even think right now of what type of book that I would choose for it. Like I cannot think of a book that's on my like one to read that fits that prompt at this point in time. So yeah, for the time being, this is on pause. But yeah, with that cliffhanger, which I mean, who really cares? I'm gonna leave you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys have a wonderful October. Enjoy the spooky season, guys, and see you guys for the next video. Bye!